There are many challenges that come along with drawing comics. Laying out a page, fitting all the information you want into those little panels, drawing backgrounds, drawing perspective. There's a lot. But for some of us, the hardest part might be drawing the same character from different angles and in different poses and making it look consistent throughout the whole comic. So in this video, we're going to talk about just that. I thought the best way to approach this topic would be to look at how some of the best comic artists and animators have mastered this particular skill. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Thomas Pitilli. I'm a comic book artist and an illustrator. And whether you're doing illustration, comics, design, art for video games, part of being a well-rounded artist is learning from various art disciplines and bringing a little bit of what you learn from all of those different disciplines into your own work. And though comics and animation are very different in a lot of ways, there are definitely areas where they overlap. And there's lots of things that we can learn from each other on. One of these things is character design and consistency. Perhaps the biggest job of the animator is to make sure that the characters look the same and stay consistent throughout the animation. This challenge happens to be exacerbated by the fact that in animation, there are several animators drawing the same character. Because of this, there needs to be clear instruction and blueprints for how to draw these various characters at different angles and in different phases of the story, so that all the animators will be on the same page and the look will remain consistent throughout. The way they do this is through character sheets and turnarounds. These are included in what is known as an animation Bible, which is a collection of resources for the animators and everyone working on a particular project. It collects certain important information such as style guides and color palettes, settings, environments, and of course, character designs and turnarounds. I'm no animator and I don't know all the various intricacies that go into animation projects. I'm more of a comic art and illustration guy. But someone who did work in both comics and animation was the great Alex Toth. I've talked about Alex Toth's work here on this channel many times, and for good reason. I found that when confronted with complicated drawing challenges, figuring out how to best simplify those challenges is the best thing to do. And when it comes to simplifying complicated ideas into digestible designs and executions, look no further than to Alex Toth. Alex Toth left us many inspiring works of art, and no matter what your particular discipline of commercial art may be, there's definitely something from his enormous body of work for all of us to be inspired by. One of those things is his character sheets for Hanna-Barbera cartoons back in, I think, mainly the 60s. This book, Genius Animated, collects much of his animated work, which was actually a big part of his career. It's my understanding that it was his job to design a lot of the characters for these Hanna-Barbera cartoons back then, as well as create exciting visuals to help pitch various ideas for TV cartoons to networks back then. As I understand it, most of the pitches never really manifested into actual TV shows, but what remained were these beautiful works of art that he created. In addition to visual pitches and storyboards, lots of what he created were character sheets and visual descriptions for the animators to work from. I think one of the reasons why a lot of us sort of intuitively know that doing these kinds of character sheets is going to help improve whatever comic project we're working on and help us understand how to draw our characters from various angles and emoting in different ways. But we hesitate from putting it into practice is because I think there's like an expectation that somehow this is going to be a very tedious and boring process. I know I'm definitely guilty of that myself, but when I look at how, for instance, Alex Toth creates these beautiful character sheets, and it looks and feels anything but stale and tedious, I definitely feel inspired to then want to create my own because of how much life and artfulness he puts into his. A character seems to just come to life on these sheets. I think an important distinction that needs to be made, though, when you're working on your character sheets for your comic is that unlike animation, where these sheets and turnarounds are meant to be shared with other animators, yours don't need to be seen by anyone but you. assuming you're the one who's going to be drawing your comic. These are visual notes that you're making to yourself so that you can reference them when you get stuck on how to draw one of your characters from a certain angle, how they may look when they're making certain facial expressions, what their costume design or outfit might be, etc. And they can be as neat or as sloppy as you want to make them. Doing character sheets like this serves two purposes. One is that it acts as a reference for you to help kind of familiarize yourself with a particular character and their specific details, and what they look like in various angles. And two, the actual act of drawing these sheets helps create a certain kind of muscle memory when it comes to drawing your character. The more you draw your character, the more the character kind of comes alive in your mind. And when that starts to happen, a very clear depiction of that character develops in your mind. And then when it comes time to drawing them from different angles and with different expressions, you can draw them much more comfortably because of that muscle memory that you built up. I don't know if any of you ever had like a certain character or superhero that you created when you were a kid, but I sort of equate it to that. When we were kids, we would get really excited about whatever character we created. And you might have drawn that character constantly, whether it was in your school notebook or in your sketchbook. And I know for me, I was oftentimes much less interested in telling an actual story with that character and much more interested in just drawing that character in like cool poses and in interesting scenarios. Essentially, that's kind of what you're doing with these. I think going into it with that kind of a mindset is actually a really great way to go about it. You want to just get really fired up and excited about drawing your character and just fill up pages with them on it. An artist that I think evokes that kind of excitement in his character designs is Scott Campbell. I have this Danger Girl sketchbook of his that I think came out sometime in the early 2000s. But amongst many things in this book, it collects some of his Danger Girl character designs. Some of these were made when he was first sort of brainstorming and coming up with these characters, and then others were done a little bit later on when he was creating designs for action figures and video games of these characters. But either way, the same approach and sentiment of drawing a character in different poses and from different angles is all there. Because this was from his sketchbook collection, it feels a little less uniform and structured than the Alex Toth designs. And I think that it's kind of helpful for some of us just to know that it doesn't have to follow this one particular template. Character designs and turnarounds can really just all be in your sketchbook if you want. They can even be on random sheets of paper. I think as long as you cover as many bases of the character as possible and just draw that character enough times from various angles and different poses and through different moods and emotions, you'll be able to bring them to life on the comic page no matter what the angle might be. I particularly like this one sheet where he drew all of Abby Chase's different facial expressions. It's really cool. It just goes to show how in-depth he went in terms of understanding his character and all the different emotions and expressions that they can potentially make. And if you ever read any of his Danger Girl comics, you'll definitely see that come through in the work. I wanted to include Scott Campbell in this particular subject because I think he does a really great job of blending both inspirations from comic art and animation in his style. Although he's a comic artist primarily, nowadays he illustrates mainly comic covers, it's very apparent that he's inspired by animators and takes a sort of animation approach to his process. Perhaps the best example of an artist who is well-versed in both animation and comics and blends the two together to create strong, dynamic, beautiful comic art is Steve Rude. I made a couple of videos on my channel about Steve Rude's work, primarily about his How to Draw the Animated Nexus book. And in many ways, this book is a perfect example of how to create reference material for drawing your characters in a consistent way and bringing them to life. Although this book was meant to act as the animation Bible for the Nexus animated TV show that has yet to be made, I think it can also be a perfect example of how to create and bring characters to life in your comic. After all, these characters are from his comic called Nexus. But instead of me talking about Steve Rude's approach to drawing characters, how about we hear it from the man himself? So Take it away, Steve.
This is Steve Reid here. It's May 14th, 2025. When I do my model sheets, obviously there's a size comparison. Every model sheet on a cartoon show always has this. You know, the heroes are about 6'2", 6'3". The other guys are, 5'10", the normal shrimpy kind of heights. The guys like me, the girls are about 5'6", 5'7". The aliens, like the grays, are like 4 foot nothing. I generally always do these things just to keep myself honest before I start drawing. So when I have these, I know where I'm going, I know what I'm getting into, and it's solidified before I even start. And I feel very comfortable going forward from there. As far as Nexus goes, I've always based him on a certain character, which is Captain Kirk. So he's always kind of been my go-to guy for that. Thunderpeel is generic. She just is my basic standard pretty girl. And if she's gonna look like anyone, it would either be Marilyn Monroe or, which I came to find out later on, is Honey Dorian from the Rip Kirby strip. Anyway, Honey Dorian looks exactly like Thunderpeel, but I didn't discover this until decades later. Anyway, she's a good resource to look at when I draw Thunderpeel, because Alex Raymond, the artist of Rip Kirby, is second to none. He's the best to work from. I called Frank Miller in New York and said, how are you getting a likeness of these certain characters? And he said, well, there's something called a Fairbairn system. I said, what's that? He goes, well, it's just, you spend $1,000 on these 9 books. And it shows you every imaginable kind of pose from people, adults to little kids. So I bought those things, and it was a great resource. I use them to this day, not extensively, but they did come in very handy. Back then, there was no such books available except for the occasional book like the Fairbairn system. This is an example of how the Fairbairn system used heads, and there are literally hundreds of such individuals that are featured in the Fairbairn system. And it's very slow turnaround, so you can get an idea of exactly how they look. These are things you study, try to figure out exactly what makes them look like them. Here's an example of everyone's favorite cynic, Alex Toth, from one of his hundreds and hundreds of model sheets done for his HB Hanna-Barbera TV shows. And this is a perfect example of his mastery of drawing here. How he got to be so perfect and expert at these head drawings is pretty amazing, because every one of them looks exactly like the same guy in the front shot right here. I myself would like to take a shot at just using this one head and trying to get them from every angle. So that's what I can tell you for now. I would say that there's nothing that I can tell you that doesn't involve a lot of hard work. So give it a shot. Use your resources, your own resources, to figure out a way to learn these very hard to draw things. If it comes easy to you, all the better. But if it came hard, like it did for me, we're in the same boat. So let me know how it goes for you, and I look forward to seeing your tries and your accomplishments. So take care. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Since Steve Reid also shares a strong affinity for the work of Alex Toth, the work of Toth's Hanna-Barbera character design sheets are definitely present in his Nexus character designs, but with his own unique and masterful take on it. Speaking of mastery, this book is actually really amazing because in addition to providing fantastic inspiration and knowledge on creating character designs, he goes even further by providing us with educational material and an overview of the fundamentals of drawing the figure in a simple and concise way. Steve Reid is one of those artists that is definitely not shy about sharing his knowledge of art making, especially on his YouTube channel, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. One of his talents in both creating art and providing art instruction is that of taking complicated subjects like drawing the figure and breaking it down into very basic terms and approaches. That's one of the things that this How to Draw the Animated Nexus book illustrates so well. For that, among many other things, this book is so great. It's not surprising that after I made my video about this book, the few copies that were left on his site completely sold out. Since then, the book has been completely out of print, much to the disappointment of anyone who came across my video, saw the book, wanted to buy it, then realized it was no longer available. Until now. Steve currently has an awesome Kickstarter campaign where you'll not only be able to pick up brand new, fresh copies of this How to Draw the Animated Nexus book, which I know so many of you have been wanting to get your hands on, but also a brand new art instruction book called Steve Rude's How to Draw. In this brand new book, Steve's offering a unique opportunity to learn advanced drawing essentials. In the book, you'll be able to discover how to master the fundamentals of human anatomy and dynamic poses, capture the energy and movement of your subjects, create depth and realism in your artwork, learn the structure and nuances of drawing compelling faces, and much more. Personally, I can't wait to pick up this book myself, and I know a lot of you are going to want to pick this one up too. So Steve was actually kind enough to collaborate with me on this video and offer a special tier on his Kickstarter campaign just for my viewers. Head over to the link in my description and you'll find a secret reward tier called Pitilli Followers. For only $40, you'll get a free digital copy of the book, which is usually a separate add-on, along with an unsigned physical copy, sticker sheet, notepad, and access to Steve's backer Discord server. Again, all for just $40 and only for those watching this video. Keep in mind that you have to be logged into Kickstarter in order to see this particular Pitilli Followers reward. The campaign officially ends on May 29th, so make sure to take advantage of this deal while it's still good. If you happen to miss the campaign deadline, Steve will be accepting pre-orders for this new book until July 30th, or until book orders are closed. If you're a fan of Steve Rude's work or just want to sharpen your drawing skills and take a deeper dive into all the things that will make your comic and illustration work so much stronger, don't miss out on these books and definitely take advantage of this special deal. Thanks to Steve and the whole Rude crew for creating this deal and helping make this video possible. Since the last two artists I talked about in this video are Scott Campbell and Steve Rude, both comic artists who are very inspired by animators and the animation process, I thought I would mention the character design of a classic and influential animator, Marc Davis. Marc Davis was one of Disney's 9 old men, the core transformational group of animators behind all of the Disney classics such as Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Sleeping Beauty, Peter Pan, Pinocchio, and others. If you love Disney animated movies from that era, so much of the genius and artfulness of those films is evident in Davis's character design and turnaround work. Like I mentioned before, if the idea of creating character designs and turnarounds is uninteresting and boring to you, do yourself a favor and check out some of the character sheets of the films that Marc Davis worked on. One of the things that I love about them is that although they act as a practical guide, they do it in a way that interjects so much of the character personality and storytelling, which for me is super inspiring. When you're drawing your characters in your comic, it's one thing to understand them from various angles, but in very stiff, rigid poses. And it's another thing to know how to draw them in those different angles and poses, but doing it in a way that communicates emotion, personality, and even specific story points. This is what will really bring your character to life, not only for you, but later on when you're drawing the comic for the reader as well. Marc Davis was just so great on so many levels, and his character design work is just super inspiring, and I definitely recommend checking it out. I think there's an Art of Marc Davis book out there somewhere. I'm pretty sure it's out of print and probably pretty expensive at this point. But if I could get my hands on it, I would love to do a future video on that book sometime. Let me know in the comments below if you would like to see that book and even what the name of the book is. I think someone recommended it in a video a while back, but I have it bookmarked somewhere. And one of these days, I'd like to pick it up and perhaps look at it on this channel. So I hope that looking at the character work of these incredible artists that we looked at in this video gives you all the excitement and inspiration you might need to start creating character sheets and turnarounds of your own characters and get a handle at drawing your characters more consistently at different angles and different vantage points. I want to thank Steve Rude for his insightful input on this topic. Thanks very much for joining the video, Steve. Remember to check out the link in my bio if you want to get your hands on Steve Rude's upcoming brand new art book. It's going to be over 100 pages of some really in-depth, masterful art instruction. You're not going to want to miss out on it. And make sure to also pledge to get a copy of the back in print How to Draw the Animated Nexus book. This one has been out of print for a while, and you're definitely going to want to add this one to your collection. It's one of my favorites. Also, in this video, we looked through some of this Genius Animated Alex Toth book. It obviously collects all of his animation work, and I showed off some of the stuff in here, but it would be cool to maybe make a future video where I go even more into depth on all the great stuff that's in this book. So let me know in the comments below if you'd like to see a future video on me going through this book. It's definitely an awesome book. It's part of this Genius series. I'm pretty sure we looked at one of these Genius series Alex Toth books in a previous video of mine a while back. And we also looked at the Danger Girl sketchbook by J. Scott Campbell. This is a more rare book. I think this has been out of print for a while. This is my copy when it first came out, like I said, in the early 2000s, 2001 actually. And beyond character design stuff, it's got a lot of really cool behind the scenes sketchbook stuff in here. He's a really great draftsman, artist. I've always said that I think J. Scott Campbell reminds me much more of like a European comic artist than anything else. He also really pulls a lot of really great influences from animation, Mad Magazine, as well as that classic like Image Comics look. So yeah, he would be a really great artist to look at, and this book would be too. So let me know in the comments if you'd like to see me go through this book a little bit more as well. If you have any other thoughts on drawing characters consistently, creating character designs, turnarounds, all the stuff that we talked about in this video, definitely leave them in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And before I head out, I want to remind you about my Patreon. We're having a lot of fun over there, and I'm sharing a lot of process work on a comic that I'm currently working on, as well as plenty of other extended versions of these videos, full process videos, and plenty of other behind the scenes stuff that I'm not sharing anywhere else. Your support over there definitely helps this channel stay alive and continue making consistent videos. And it will also help support my other creator-owned comic endeavors. So all the support helps, and I greatly appreciate anyone even considering joining. So thanks so much for everyone who's already there. And if you're not there, I hope to see you there soon. That's it from me. I had a lot of fun making this video. I hope you enjoyed watching it. More videos on the way. As always, thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.